Alrighty, friends. It is I, Kerbis136. My webcam's really far away. Hold on, I'm about to zoom in on you. Get ready. That tilt because it's not very well tilted. Okay, we're good. Sorry. I just opened my software. I don't intend to broadcast today. This is just for the patch. 7.37b has hit. And I read some of it. Not all of it. I got to, I don't know, D or something. Something around there. So, all of these changes are mostly nice to start. First off, Gleipnir, which I believe it is Gleipnir, but whatever, Gleipnir, this item. The radius in which it affects units has decreased by 25. That means it's smaller. So when you aim at an area, you're less likely to catch as many heroes or whatever else in it. It's a good nerf. It doesn't really change the way the item works. It just makes it a little bit less effective at getting everybody, right? So good nerf. These are all the same change. It's just saying that specifically these two, Mana Regen Amp and Spell Lifesteal Amp, no longer stack between Kaya items. So you can't have a Kaya and a Yashikaya or whatever, or any other Kaya-based item, which I don't even know how many of those there are, but... Kaya, so I guess Meteor Hammer. You could have a Meteor Hammer and build one of those, and it no longer stacks. That's the point. Whatever the case may be, it's just stopping an abuse. It doesn't matter. Ironwood Tree had too high of a cast range. They halved it. The reason why is that when you plant that tree, it can block people's ability to see you or block them from running. It was just too much, so they just cut it back. I didn't see it get used that way, but I know it can be, so I get it. All right, into the hero changes. And by the way, these are good changes. I like these. I mean, I would have liked to see some other items get a hit, but at least it's a start. Abaddon. Mist Coil costs, it scales up in cost now, so that's a little bit more expensive for a hero like Abaddon, whose mana pool isn't great. The DPS of Curse went up by 5 at all levels. That makes him a little bit better at being a right-click carry, but still probably weak. They actually nerfed basically all of his talents, at least all these 3 talents, slightly. So overall, I think that, you know, it makes Abaddon potentially a little bit more right-click-esque, but very minorly so. In any other context without the right-click, he's weaker because of the talents. So, you know. Alchemist, who I don't see played anymore. Grievel's Greed will last for an additional 4 seconds. Which I think is very important, because I think it's very hard for him to get these Grievel's Greed to always be proccing. So just to help him really get that gold multiplier and make it meaningful. I think that's fair. Berserk Potion lasts an additional 5 seconds. That's his shard, I believe, where he throws a potion, it dispels them and gives them attack speed, movement speed, and HP regen. So I guess it just didn't last long enough. I think it's probably too long at 15, but I understand why it's buffed. It's a shard, and it didn't feel that impactful. AA, Death Rhyme, which is the innate. It's whenever AA's abilities, you know, hit you, they give Death Rhyme stacks based on the ability. A Death Rhyme will slow enemies' movement speed and deals damage over time. The damage per time is 10. And it used to be a 1.5% slow, now it's a 2% slow. Very minor, but obviously as you're stacking multiple abilities on someone, and it can be multiple Death Rhyme stacks, that will start adding up much more quickly. And that's fine. AM. Basically, they buffed 2 talents. The Mana Void Radius, which is something I never take at 10, because instead I could get extra, you know, magic resistance typically, got bigger. And that is tempting, actually. That does allow you to potentially bomb a team, and that does make it a much more tempting talent, though questionable. 15, I think everybody was taking the max mana burn. It just feels better. But increasing the slow of Persecutor by an additional 5% does make that more tempting, where you could actually perma-slow somebody. So, you know, it's not terrible. I do like that too. So it makes the talents that I wouldn't normally take a little bit more enticing. I think I'll still stick most of the time with the talents that I usually take, but that's definitely something. Arc Warden got 2 talent changes. His talent that increases the magnetic field attack speed and bonus damage got nerfed, but the Spark Wraith talent got increased by 5%, which is super fucking sad. So you can have like super Spark Wraiths, which I hate. But I'd rather the Spark Wraiths hit hard than him hit hard, so, you know. Axe got one of the biggest nerfs I've seen him take in a long time. Counter Helix Radius got reduced by 25. That means it's harder for Axe to chase you and start spinning, right? Now spin doesn't farm as well because now units have to be a little closer to Axe, and he's harder to kill units that are running away. I mean, he'll catch you in theory with the Blink Dagger and slowing you with Battle Hunger, but still, right? They also moved his counter Helix damage down and buffed it, and moved up Berserker's Call Armor and nerfed it. Now, the difference, though, was that before, when it was counter Helix versus armor, it was easy counter Helix, in my opinion. Sorry, it used to be armor versus Culling Blade, which I usually use Culling Blade in my opinion, and then I would take the counter Helix over the slow. But now that they switched positions, I don't know if I want the armor or the slow better, but I definitely know I want the counter Helix over the Culling Blade. I don't know, it just changes the way that you're going to decide which talent to take, but it's interesting. Still nerfs overall. Sleepwalk, which is the facet that makes units walk in the direction you vector target. It now gives, obviously, this increased movement speed. It makes them walk 10 faster. Now, 10 is minor, right? Most units are walking at, 280 to 330, somewhere in that range, right? Depending on boots and all that stuff. But, like, right around there, right? We'll say around 300. So 10 is, like, whatever. But it matters. It means that during that duration of, 6.5 seconds at max level, that they will be going slightly more out of position, which we'll take. They also buffed the 25 talent for a super brain sap. So I think Bane in general will appreciate just the gentle buff. I think this is going to matter. Sleepwalk is going to matter more than people think. They're going to be sleeping on it, if you know what I mean. It's a joke, obviously. Bad pun. I think that moving somebody just a little bit farther, because 10 across 6 seconds is obviously 60, units. And obviously the half second, so obviously it's 65 units. 65 units is not large. A 4-staff pushes, I believe, 800, 900. But that's still, a large distance more, right? So if you do the multiplicative math, I mean, not the increase, but just the general math, we're talking, it goes over half a 4-staff's length now, right? Just soft math. Batrider, who is one of the worst heroes in the game right now, if I remember correctly. That's what it was saying in DotA buff, if I remember correctly. Base strength actually decreased, so he lost 3 strength. Instead, strength gain increased, and the problem with this is that strength gain, so to get 3 strength back at a 0.4 increase, is going to take 1... This might actually balance out. In 3 levels, you have 1.2. So that's 6 levels, you have 2.4. 7. I think at like level 8, somewhere between 8 and 10, this will start to be worth it. But he's weaker to start. So Batrider will be tankier in the late game, but actually weaker in the early, and that's really painful for the laning stage. On the flip side, he did get a sticky napalm buff on the 25 talent, which is actually really nice for late game Batrider effectiveness. So I think this might be a good change for Batrider overall, but the laning might be too painful. The facet that makes Inner Beast give bonus attack speed per unit that you have went up by 1 at all levels, just more attack speed, which I think is fine. Probably wasn't enough attack speed before. I think that's fair. Apparently, Brewmaster has the facet for Drunken Master. His max self-movement slowed was... it gives a self-movement slow, I guess, depending on the moment to moment, if I remember correctly. And now the max slow is 5% less, meaning he will not be as slow when he is slow from the Drunken Master. That's obviously a buff, right? He will never be as slow as he used to be. So a buff to Brewmaster, which I don't like. I hate Brewmaster, so what are you going to do? The facet, which is horsepower, you get movement speed based on strength. Got nerfed by 5%. I think that's fine. I never took horsepower. I don't think he's ever slow enough to warrant it personally. But I do know some people do. Whatever, seeing it get nerfed is fine. Hookup is the ability that Hookshot gave a barrier to allies if he hit an ally, basically. And it would reduce the cooldown of Hookshot. So it would allow you to hook to an ally and help them. Now it also refunds a large part of the mana, so that Clockwork doesn't have as many mana problems if he's doing that. and it'll grant armor instead of a barrier. Now, granted, you might say that armor is worse because obviously a barrier would protect against magic nuke, armor doesn't. But this is a lot of fucking armor compared to what the barrier was. I think this is probably a buff overall. Physical damage is the most important later in the game because it's the only thing that'll be sustained enough to do enough damage to matter. And armor is really effective at its job. This much armor, 25 armor, is crazy. So I think this is definitely a buff to Clockwork, a big buff to Clockwork. The armor by itself, let alone the mana coming back. Nerf to Darkseer's normal punch. Obviously, the idea is that no matter, depending on how much he's been running, he does more damage. The max damage was 450. Now the max damage is 400, so normal punch won't do quite as much damage. It still does, cause an illusion to be cast at them, right? Because it knocks a replica out, but at least the damage is lower. This is one of my least favorite changes I saw, because I went a little farther than this. Dark Willow has a facet that allows her to have a radius around her that will increase damage that any enemies she attacks, basically. So it's a radius aura that increases damage that she deals to enemies in its area of effect by up to a percentage. It scales based on how long she's been in Shadow Realm, so it slowly gets up to that 30%. So it starts low, and then it's like 10%, 20%, 30%, depending on how long she's been in Shadow Realm. The aura on this increased by 100. The problem with that means is that even if you're at the very, very, very extent of her ability to attack you out of Shadow Realm, it will still do the extra percentage damage. And obviously, Dark Willow is still a hero that just everybody wants to buy Ags on. Because it doesn't take you out of Shadow Realm. Stand in my way. So now all she's going to do is be like, oh, I can still get the damage from throwing shade. And she's going to go throwing shade and then attack you from super far away without revealing. And just be like, all this high damage with 30% amp. And now you're going to see Dark Willow right clicks happen a lot more, basically, which is disgusting. Death Prophet got 2 facet buffs. A, the movement slow on Suppress, which makes them all slow if they're silenced, got buffed. By 5% at the early level, 2 at the late. And the Spirit Collector, which allows you to get special spirits, which is... I don't remember, but you get spirits when people die. That's what it is. When people die, you get spirits. The hero spirit damage increased... by an okay amount, like 4 damage or whatever is what it looks like. About 4 damage, depending on the level. A lot early at C. No, 4 damage. About 4 levels at all levels. So it's just going to make it easier for her to kill people during Exorcism or buildings. So obviously this is just one facet. You have to take it, but it just got stronger. So I have no idea what Momentum does, but attack speed penalty, I have to look. I don't know what Elder Titan does. Momentum. Elder Titan's base attack speed is reduced, but his movement speed also grants attack speed. So he gets an attack speed penalty right off the bat. And then he gains some of it back based on move speed. Okay. So that starting attack speed penalty increased by 10. So this is a nerf. That means he has to be moving faster until the attack speed will be counterbalanced. Now, is it hard to counterbalance it? No, I don't think so. But I still like to see the nerf on top of the fact that not only are we talking about that break-even point of counterbalancing it, what's more important is that no matter what, his max attack speed will be 10 less. So if he ends up at enough attack speed where it's like, oh, I have plenty, you know what I mean? I'm attacking at 400 attack speed. Well, 400 is better than 410, which is what he would have had. So a 10 nerf is a 10 nerf, and I'll still take it. Alright, Ember Spirit, lots of nerfs. This is, in Furry, should be so happy. Immolation, the passive that does a burn, has no linger duration. It's immediately off. On top of that, the damage was decreased on it at later levels. It's the same early, but it got a 0, 2, 4, 6 nerf. And that's huge, right? The DPS just went down a lot. Sleight of Fist got a 1 cooldown nerf at all levels. That's also a huge nerf. The talent for Flame Guard to have a barrier got nerfed by 35. And the damage for Slight got nerfed by 5. So basically, Ember is going to not do as much damage just to be near you. Slight comes out less often. He doesn't get as big of a barrier when he gets to 10, which is a huge one. That's like one of his spikes. And when he gets that 20 talent for Slight, it doesn't do quite as much damage as it used to. I'm not saying it'll make him unplayable, but I like to see it. And I know what you mean in Furry, obviously, but I think this is a good start. Enchantress. I don't know what Spellbound does. Cast range of Enchantress. Enchant is increased. If the enemy is a hero, Enchantress and units she controls have increased attack range against the target. So basically before, she got extra attack range. That already existed. Enchantress used to have increased attack range against the target. And the attack range bonus was 200. So if she had Spellbound specifically. Now, also her units will have that increase of attack speed. Increased of attack range so that they can hit too. I think that's minor. I don't think it's like crazy where it's like, oh wow, like we definitely needed whatever she was controlling to attack. It's not that big of a deal, but it's nice. She had a 45 damage talent, was replaced with 30 attack speed for her and her units. That's way better. Health and damage for Enchantress creeps changed to health and damage for her and her creeps. So basically they 20 buffed herself, so she gets the bonuses of the health and damage if she doesn't want to take the untouchable buff. And they replaced the damage talent, which is kind of stupid anyway, to an attack speed, which is way better. These are definitely Enchantress buffs that I think are going to make her more playable for sure. Everyone's going to think this is minor, but it's much bigger than people think it is. Time Lock's damage went up by 2, 3, 4, 5. Just remember that Time Lock does double damage inside Chrono. Nobody ever remembers that that's true. It is. Which means that a 5 increase ends up being 10, and you're like, okay, and... But then it can also proc multiple times if it gets a multi-bash on you. It ends up adding up. I'm not saying it's crazy and suddenly he's broken, but it matters. I am almost as far as I went, by the way. I think I went to... I went farther than I thought. I went to... I think I stopped at Oracle. That's where I stopped. Hoodwink, who I hate. Basically, first off, I'm going to do this. They nerfed Scurry's duration. It went down by 1.5 at all levels. That is dramatic. Since Scurry obviously does have charges, but, you know, not lasting as long means, you know, Hoodwink can't go all the way around doing whatever Hoodwink wants. On the flip side, the Go Nuts thing, which gives bonus attack and cast range during Scurry, now increases it back to its original value. So if you take Go Nuts, you will get your Scurry back. But if you do not take it, your Scurry sucks. I like these kinds of changes, right? Nerf the base ability, but make one of the facets, make it back to normal. That way, people feel compelled to take a certain facet if they want this. And if they take the other facet, sorry, you suffer. I like that a lot. Huskar. Incendiary was one thing that people wanted to take because it gives a percentage of max health. However, the problem was it was shorter. So it didn't matter as much as people wanted it to. In exchange, the duration is no longer reduced. So now it's a max duration, right? I think that's super cool. And the max health burn was decreased by 0.25, but that's needed because it lasts longer. So it should still be a buff, I believe, if I'm correct. So it shouldn't matter. Let's check. Let's click Huskar. Normally, Burning Spears have a 9-second duration. I'm pretty sure this one before had like a crazy low duration. It no longer reduces burn duration. They should fix that tooltip. I believe it was notable. I think it was a couple seconds. So each tick it's going to do would already counterbalance the difference between this. Because it was like 4 seconds before, it was 5 seconds before, it's 9 now. The extra 4 ticks should counterbalance the loss of this, right? So it'll end up doing more damage anyway. The 25 talent for Burning Spear duration got increased by 2 seconds. So now when you have the 25, you can get even longer Burning Spears, which that doesn't have to do with Incendiary, but it's really nice in general, let alone Incendiary. So I think Huskar might be slowly making a comeback, but the Lincoln's nerf is still going to hurt him. Invoker. Most of these changes are very minor. First off, Elitist, if you have the Elitist facet, it gives you Spell Int per instance. That's better than it was before by 1 at all levels. That's whatever. Every other change is the same change. You can do all 3 reagents and Invoke without stopping channeling or breaking invisibility. So it can actually let you set up for something without worrying about breaking invisibility or stopping a TP or something. They changed the Forge Spirit attack speed, replaced with an extra Forge Spirit. I also noticed that Invoker doesn't have another 25 talent. Is that correct? That can't be true, right? No. Okay, it doesn't. It just doesn't list it there in like the quick thing. I thought Forge Spirits in general increased the number from before, but I guess they must have changed that. I don't remember. I thought if you had enough levels in certain things, you'd get an extra Forge Spirit. Yeah, spawns 2 spirits when crossing Exord or at least level 4. So now you can get a 3rd Forge Spirit. Ooh, that's rough. That's rough. Yeah. Okay. So a buff to one of the facets, slightly just to the Exhort orb and just changing some stuff and buffing a talent, basically, which is nice. Because I think the Forge Spirit attack speed is not nearly as important as an extra Forge Spirit. An extra Forge Spirit is, like, way better. Liquid Frost, the bonus damage was decreased by early, like 3, 2, 1, 0. Just so it does a little bit less damage in lane, basically, because it does do a lot. I think that was needed. It felt a little strong, so I like that a lot. Because it did too much. On top of the movement slow and stuff, it did too much damage. Jug got a base damage increase of 2, and that's it. Just like, hey, just 2 damage, bud. That's going to help laning tremendously. I've been playing Jug a lot recently, and that means that obviously Jug just does more damage during trading. It means that Jug can farm a little better. He can farm better against heroes with high damage. It means Omni Slash does more because obviously it just increases your damage and attack speed during it. So it's going to affect a lot. A crit is now bigger, obviously, because it's a crit based on higher damage. You know, this is a lot of really cool things for Jug here. And I know it's just a simple change, but it does change how the hero plays. Stoneplate Hall got a nerf of 2 seconds, so the barrier doesn't last as long. Now it's supposed to match the speed buff. I think that's definitely needed. Yeah, so basically it was just too much. The barrier was just lasting too long, so they nerfed it. Minor change, but a change. Lena's supercharge stacks from having this thermal runway got nerfed. They have to build up to the 12 stacks. Now it starts at 10, then 11, then 12 based on ults. I think that's definitely needed, just to nerf the level 6 Lena ult. So I think that's really cool. It doesn't nerf a ton, but it nerfs it. Still needed. This is going to be what's going to send Infuri off the fucking deep end. Magnus dicked on Infuri the last game we played over and over again because he's annoying. And you know what DotA said? They said, nah, we think Magnus is bad. Let's fix that. Base agility increase of 3. That is 1/2 of an armor, basically. So now he'll have more armor depending on the spot. 3 attack speed. Magnus, I think, is still strength, right? I don't remember.
Under my hoof, you will find your fate.
I'm not even sure how you test that anymore. How do I know? Oh, no, he's universal. So it's also some damage. Like 1. I think. So also some damage. So 1 damage, 3 attack speed, 1/2 an armor. Yeah, no, that's it too, but it's still, this is still bad. Solid Core, his passive, already gave him less knockback, so it's hard to move him, right? And they decided, you know what? Let's also give him slow resistance, so it's hard to stop him from coming at you. And it's a lot too. It scales with reverse polarity, so he starts with 20% right off the bat, and he'll get higher. His 15 talent is that when he hits someone with reverse polarity, he gets stats. He gets all stats, which since he's a universal hero, he does a lot more damage and gets tanky and all this other stuff. So they decided to increase the duration by 5 seconds. And if he does refresher, this is what this means, by the way. If he does refresher, instead of refreshing the stacks, it now stacks. So he could gain 24 all stats for a full 20 seconds instead of just refreshing it. So it means that Refresher Magnus is even stronger than it was before if he decides to go for that particular facet. I don't think these change the way he's played necessarily, but it just makes him better at what he already does. You know what I mean? When he's using, when he has more damage, and he uses, his stupid buff on himself, it means he'll do even more damage because he's already doing more damage and it's multiplicatively strong. So it's just annoying. Victory Feast, which is when he kills somebody in the arena, he gets max health and mana and attack damage buff. It now lasts 5 seconds longer, which is basically just the attack damage buff because the other stuff is instant. So it's gotta be unless the health comes over time. I don't think it does. I think it's just the attack damage. So the attack damage lasts longer, which just makes this facet a little bit better. I think it's needed. They changed this useless bulwark redirect chance to being a bulwark extra percentage block. They kicked this one down to, they made it worse, but they kicked it down to 10 instead of 20. But at 20, they replaced with something way better, which is a 20-second buff to arena cooldown at 20, which is, like, really nice. That's, like, really nice. So I think these are really good changes from ours. Very nice. Mirana got a base agility increase of 2. That's 2 attack speed, 2 damage, 1/3 of an armor. Solar Flare, one of the facets. The time to max damage and attack speed. So it gradually increases the daytime vision range, attack speed and damage of Mirana and all allied heroes, reaching maximum power after 6 seconds. It used to be 8. So they would slowly gain attack speed and damage. Now, which is 80, 120, 160, by the way. Now it reaches it much faster. 6 seconds. And then since it lasts 18, that's an additional 2 seconds during that where they're just still strong. Really rough. Yeah. That's really rough. Starstorm secondary strike increased by 5%, as did the Arrow's Starstorm, because it's the same type. The secondary strike radius increased by 25, so it's easier for it to actually hit somebody in case they're a little farther away. Because before it was weird, you could get hit with a Starstorm, but the range didn't match with the secondary, so it just wouldn't hit anybody. So it now matches. And the leap distance talent got buffed by 25, making her just unkillable. So Mirana got huge buff. You're going to see Mirana in your games, I can guarantee you. Primal Spring can now be channeled longer. It does not say that it scaled any damage or movement slow, obviously. I think it just means that he can wait. Actually, no, technically speaking, he doesn't say this, but I'm guessing that he has to channel the maximum amount to get the max slow in damage, because it's proportional. It says it's proportional in channel duration, unless I'm wrong. So it means the Monkey King now has to channel longer to get as big of an effect on it. But on the flip side, you could consider it a buff, because now he can start channeling and wait and potentially cancel it or whatever else he wants to do. But I would say it's a nerf overall, it seems. Jingu Mastery got worse early but better late. I would say the early nerf is much more impactful than the late game buff, because it's an early nerf of 10 but a late game buff of 5. It's probably going to hurt him more than it helps him in the long run. We'll see. Where it's a base armor increase, I don't know why. I don't get it, honestly. She doesn't need it, but okay. Ofrenda, which I used, which I actually kind of liked, it gives an attack speed buff if she's near it. The effect radius was rescaled, so it's a little bit lower at level 1, which is before her ult. When she gets her ult, it's equal to what it was, and then as her ult levels up, the Ofrenda's range actually increases, giving you that ability to fight around Ofrenda and get more attack speed. I think that's a really nice buff, since it gives you 45 attack speed at max level, like, level 18. And having an extra 100 radius to use that, I think is very, very nice. The mana cost on the calling went down by 5 at all levels. That's minor. So we're to buffs for no reason. Almost done. Naga. Deluge, which is the you choose that facet. It lowers stash resistance and max movement. Gets slowed. It caps it actually and does damage. The duration increased by 1 second, so you'll be slowed and have stash resistance for longer. I don't play Naga anymore. I don't know how that even works. Necrophos got base in increased by 1. That's 1 damage because Necro is still int, if I remember correctly. Yes. So 1 damage and a little bit of magic resistance that goes with that. And mana pool and obviously mana regen. Minor, but nice for him. And the rapid decay, which is that he gains movement speed equal to movement speed lost by enemies when he's using Ghost Shroud. The movement speed steal increased by 10%, meaning that he'll actually go even faster now when he's taking that movement speed. So rapid decay actually might be good now because he's gonna go fast as fuck. The shard for Night Stalker, which lets him eat a creep and heal and get mana back, got a cooldown nerf of 5 seconds. It's needed. It was too strong. Early cooldown nerf for Impale. It now is 1 second worse at first level, but it actually gets better by 3rd level and really too good at 4th level. 2 seconds less. Really disgusting. I don't want to see that. I hate Nyx. What are you going to do? Healing Hammer was a facet, so when he does his hammer, it heals. I believe it just heals him. Yeah, he heals all the time. It nerfed the healing by 5%, which probably needed. Won't make him as viable as a core in any capacity, because you could be like, oh, I'm going to be tanky and survivable core and use my Healing Hammer. Well, Healing Hammer's worse, so good luck. Oracle. The damage and heal per second was decreased by 5 on Reigns of Destiny, which is probably needed because it's way too good. So I'm glad that it's nerfed. It won't do as much damage to the enemies, and it won't do as much heal to the allies. So good. Okay, OD, this is new to me. Aghanim Scepter damage barrier was decreased from 70% to 65% of maximum mana. So
I'll overshadow
damage
you.
that would bring OD below 20% triggers a strong dispel. In addition, when the effect is triggered, OD consumes all of his mana to create an all damage barrier equal to a percentage of his mana that lasts for 15 seconds. Okay, I get it now. So that means the barrier on average will be smaller, because obviously it means that it's only taking into consideration 5% less of that mana. Obviously OD often has like 2k mana, so 10% of 2k is 200. So we're talking 5%, so it's like 100, so you'll have 100 less barrier or something depending on the situation. That's kind of nice, right? A nice little nerf to OD. Alright, they're trying to fix PL. So, instead of 65% of bonus damage being converted into base damage, 100% of bonus damage is now converted to base damage for PL. It just means that obviously himself they didn't want to nerf. The illusions still only do 65% though, which means they have not buffed illusions at all because they still got all the nerfs to illusion damage. Juxtapose, the illusion damage taken was decreased by 25%. So illusions created by his ults take 25% less damage, so they're a little harder to clear. I think that this is a nice start to making PL's illusions back to like meaningful, but I do not think that this percentage matters at all. It's not going to fix PL. It's going to make him like sort of almost playable, but not really. The illusions are the problem. It is what it is. Primal Beast, Romp and Stop, which is what I do. It no longer provides passive self-movement speed. It now provides 10% self-move speed when activated. So it used to be that it only gave movement speed. Sorry, it gave movement speed to you always. And it gave allies movement speed when you activated it. Now, it doesn't give you any movement speed at all But when you activate it, it still gives the 5 to allies, so that hasn't changed. But for you, you get 10% while you're doing it. I think this is a buff. The extra 5% when you're trampling is when you want it anyway. So even if you get the nerf otherwise, I think the 5% buff when you're actually doing trample is when you want it. So I think that's a nice. Puckish. Now also restores a flat 20 health and mana per dodge. Multiplied if dodging a target spell. Okay. So before, Puck was getting, from Puckish, 2% of max mana and 2% of max health for dodging an attack. Okay? And that's multiplied by 4 if it's a spell. Now, on top of that, Puck is getting a flat 20 for both, in addition to the 2%. That's also still multiplied by 4, I mean. So that means that if you dodge a spell, not only are you getting the 8% of max mana and max health, you're also getting 80 max mana and max health. Sorry, 80 mana and health, not max. I think this is a really nice change to make Puckish feel meaningful, obviously. I haven't been playing Puck, but I think this is a really nice change to the innate. It just makes it that much better to avoid stuff and get a benefit for doing so. Shadow Strike on Queen of Pain got a buff of a cast point. I really want to play Queen of Pain again. That's so nice. Shadow Strike coming out that much faster, 0.1 seconds, it does matter. Because if you've ever been a Queen of Pain or some other hero and you're like, cast spell, and then lose vision, and then you're like, oh, I guess I can't cast spell because it just stops. It's now less likely to happen. It's more likely to come off. It's more likely to finish the animation, like, doosh, and then lose vision and it still hits the person. So, like, that's needed. Ooh, a Ricky buff early. Tricks of the Trade doing more agility at level 1, 2, and 3. Sorry, my mother texted me. Just trying to answer it real quick. Okay. I mean, it's not like a late game buff, but I mean, if I can get a kill in lane over this, because obviously, you know, think about it like this, right? 15 agility bonus when I use this. That means that I'm doing 15 additional damage. Even though my attack damage gets nerfed, I'm getting 15 damage back, and that's multiplied by backstab, although slightly, because backstab's like 0.4 at that time. So like 10% of 15 is 1.5, and it's going to be less than. Sorry. It's 0.4, so it's almost 50%. So like 50. Okay, basically, I'll do the math differently. Basically, if we're talking about 15, it's going to be like 7. So 7 additional from backstab as well. So not only is it 15 damage, it's actually, 23 or something. So 23 additional damage is going to happen on each individual hit, on whoever I'm hitting with tricks from that level 1. And obviously the scaling up means it's barely anything by this level, obviously. Very minor, and nothing by 4. But still, I think that it really helps the early game Ricky. I think he's good in lane, but he could be better. He can be pushed out and bullied, so I think it's nice just to see a little bit. It's so minor, too. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, if anything that could happen, since it's only the early, it's like, eh. Rubik base int decreased by 1. Let's go. Less mana regen, 1 less damage. Mana cost on Fade Bolt was increased at higher levels, 0, 5, 10, 15. We'll also take that. Slardar, his health talent went up. Nobody cares. Snapfire, please be nerfs. Cooldown was rescaled to be longer, earlier, less late on Scatterblast. I'll take that, actually. I'd rather the laning be nerfed. Cookie, impact damage was increased by 5 at all levels. I mean, I don't care that. Spit Out now applies the current level of Mortimer Kisses on impact. It didn't before? I thought it did. So, I don't know what the actual damage is. It doesn't say here. It says that causing impact damage, but I don't see the impact damage.
Smells like a battle cooking.
Doesn't tell me. I guess now the impact damage is whatever this damage is. 180 or whatever, I guess. I don't know. Alright, well, Spit Out's better now. So, buffs overall with Snapfire, sad. Warcry's cooldown got nerfed. They're just sick of this Warcry feeling so meaningful. So a 5 nerf at all levels, that's really rough. I guess level 10 talent, which makes you have more better reflection cooldown, got buffed by 1 second. It's whatever. Ooh, here we go. Bye, Tinker Support. Bye. Repair bots. What makes people want to play Tinker Support, even though statistics show he's worse at support than he is mid. Heal per second was decreased by 1, 4, 7, 10, right? Yeah, 1, 4, 7, 10. That means a lot because the heal per second, right? So we're talking about a heal per second for 6 seconds. So 10, that's 60 less heal at max level March. That's a big deal. The mana cost on March also went up by 10 at all levels, making it harder to spam it without having some ability to get mana back. Defense Matrix also went up by 10 at all, 10, 15, 20, 25. Also harder to cast. So now Tinker's going to have a harder time having enough mana to do his job. And March is just weaker for repair. So good. Fuck Tinker. Troll Warlord, Bad Influence, which is Battle Trans grants allied heroes attack speed. The attack speed they get increased by 10%, which is nice. So if you want to help your allies by being like a troll in the 2 position or something, you can actually give your safe lane carry at more attack speed if you did this. I'm not saying I would, it's interesting. Snowball stun duration now increases by 0.2 seconds per ally in Snowball. Before, all it did was do extra damage. And now that it does more stun, that's a really big buff to Tusk. Really big buff. And the extra Walrus Punch stun went up by 0.25, meaning bigger stun on Walrus Punch is also a really big change. Okay. Now Ursa's Maul, the health is damage, has to scale back up to where it was. It barely changed, but they just gently slapped it down early. Gently. Earthshocked Aghanim's Shard in range duration was decreased by 0.1 second. That's just when you used Earthshock with Aghanim's Shard, it would give you a mini Enrage. It would do the same effect as Enrage, but it would only last for a little while. They just nerfed it by 0.1 second, just to make him not quite enraged all the time. They kicked back the Earthshock giving 2 Fury Swipes back. In exchange, they put the Fury Swipe damage up, but they nerfed it, which is probably fair. Septic Shock now counts 1 debuff per unique ability or item. So Shiva's Guard will count as 1 instead of 3. Basically, some items cause multiple debuffs. And Shiva's is a perfect example. It does an attack speed slow by you being there. It has an active, which is the slow that it hits you with, as well as an attack speed slow on Shiva's. I believe that's exactly how it works. It's like an extra one. Its passive is attack speed and the heal nerf. The active causes enemies to take more damage from spells. That one too. So it's more damage, more spells, slows movement speed, and the attack speed nerf. So instead of those counting for 3 Septic Shock charges, which is way too strong, since Septic Shock obviously is giving damage, his attacks deal extra damage, they nerfed it substantially. Which was needed? You're talking about Venomancer? I assume you were talking about Venomancer there. Yeah, I didn't know it did that either. Yeah, I think that's very much needed. Veno's kind of disgusting to some degree, so the nerf is definitely needed. I didn't know it worked that way either. Okay. Predator. Bonus damage is now decreased by the illusion damage reduction amount if applied by illusions. That just means that Viper Manta doesn't do full damage. Damage per missing health was decreased from 0.25 plus 0.05 per level. Okay, so the per level is the same, it just starts lower. It was 0.25, now it's 0.15. Yeah, basically, so how it's calculated is Viper attacks, a physical damage, extra physical damage hits per missing health. Yeah, So every single piece of health that they're missing, it was doing a calculation, and it was like, oh, okay, they're missing 100 health. And it was like, okay, multiply that by 0.25, and that's how much additional damage they were taking, plus an amount based on Viper's level, so it would slowly get higher. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's 0.3 or something. It's starting lower, so it's never going to scale quite as high. So Viper will do less damage. Corrosive Skin attack speed slow was replaced with more poison attack slow and damage. That's really nice, actually. They kicked the poison attack slow damage up, but they nerfed it. And in replacement for a 20 talent, they gave 0.2 predator damage for missing health. And actually, that means that if you take this talent at 20, you're doing more damage than you used to with predator, because he lost 0.1 and he's getting 0.2. So you'll actually be doing 0.1 more on the calculation of missing health, which means it's technically a nerf to Viper for most of the game, but at 20, Viper is going to be scarier than he ever was. Visage, max stacks decreased by 2. That's grants a stack every 2 seconds. The Visage does not take damage. Each stack grants cooldown and acceleration with a max of 8 stacks. Stacks fade upon taking damage. Okay, so max stacks is 2. That means that Visage is going to be losing 4% cooldown acceleration, basically, because max stacks means, you know, less cooldown acceleration. That's a really interesting situation. I think that's a nice little nerf. It doesn't hurt the way Visage plays, but just is a nice little nerf. As far as what you said about the Viper, so technically speaking, getting early poison attack, slow, and damage is nice. It's competing with Nether Toxin min-max, but probably I would take the poison attack. The problem is that now with the poison attack being a 5% nerf, it's not going to slow the attack speed as much when you get to that 20 compared to what it used to, and not as much damage on poison attack either. Now, I think it's worth it in exchange for Predator, right? I think it's going to end up being better, but it is something to consider where you are losing some poison attack efficiency, even though you're getting it earlier. I think it's probably a buff, but remember that until you get to 20, you're losing damage anyway. So, you know, it looks like a nice change, and it's probably a good change. Void Spirit. The Remnant effectiveness was increased from 60 to 70%, because Call of the Void has a bunch of Aether Remnant spawn. They're now better. They stun longer, because they have they're weaker than normal Remnant. So that's really annoying. Warlock. Fatal Bonds. Shared damage was increased at earlier levels, 3210, so it's more damage from Fatal Bonds. In relation to that, the cooldown increased early as well by 6420. Yeah. So he'll have it up less, slightly. Still a huge buff to Fatals, though. Shadow Word. Cooldown was rescaled to be worse early, but much better late. Mana cost was decreased. Cast range was rescaled to be better early, worse late. Chaotic Offering. The Golem permanent immolation damage was decreased at late levels, so it's 0, 5, 10. I think that the Chaotic Offering is a real pain. That's really bad, because obviously it's supposed to clear waves and stuff, and it does less damage per second. Shadow Word obviously got a buff on cooldown, but a nerf for everything else. Well, a buff on mana cost, but the big thing that matters is cast range. You got a nerf in cast range. I think that's okay, though. Fatal Bond's got a early game buff. It's the same late anyway. But the cooldown nerf on the I don't think that matters. So overall, I think there are buffs for Warlock, I think, other than the Chaotic Offering. Okay. Hive Mind. Weaver gains experience when the Swarm Beetles attack heroes. I didn't even know that was the thing. XP per attack was increased by 1, 2, 3, 4. So if Weaver does this, more XP. I mean, it's not very much XP, so I guess that's fine. Whirlwind. Bonus attack range was decreased by 25, making Whirlwinds not hit as far. Which is really nerfing this facet. I think this facet's terrible. Yeah. Well, I usually don't take Whirlwind anyway, so. Who cares? Cleft Death. That's the split attack. The person we played against recently did take that, though. This is the split death ward. Now as a primary and secondary target, damage to primary target was increased by 10, 20, 30. Damage to secondary target is equal to 65% of the primary. So this increase actually does make this tempting. Let's take a look. So regular ult 60, 95, 130. Okay, so it's you get a 5 damage nerf, which does equal a lot because obviously okay. And Furry, please point out to me why I would not take Cleft Death now. It looks to me like taking Cleft Death nerfs my damage by 5, right? At all levels, just 5. There is no other negative at all, and it hits a second target for a reduced amount of damage. What's the reason to not take Cleft Death now? Like, I know I want Headhunter because, you know, it actually doesn't matter, but it just doesn't nerf your voodoo. This nerfs voodoo. You should just take it now. It's just the correct answer. Okay. I don't get it. Yeah, I mean, the question really... Okay, we have to find something out real quick. Here's what I need to know. When it bounces with Aghanims, does it still bounce fully?
With bones and spells I come. Well. Is everyone ready?
What? Yeah.
So. My curiosity is, what happens if I create...
Sir. What's that?
So I want to know...
All's well.
That's like a regular ult, right? Do I do less damage? I didn't even take the facet.
Here I come.
Can I just change the facet in real time? No, I probably can't.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I can.
The
There we go.
oh yeah, right of passage.
Does it do less damage to the third target?
For what?
Oh, I don't have axe. That would explain one thing.
Well. A twisted path.
Did I see that right? It looked like it was bouncing...
Yes, indeed.
It looks like it's all doing it. You know what I should do? This is stupid. Why do I have heroes? I should create a
On my
dummy.
rounds. With vim and vigor. Very fine.
It did the same damage to all of them. So... that shouldn't be the case, though.
By my bones.
Oh, sorry, I want a dummy.
Deploying.
Yes. Yes.
It shouldn't do the same.
Here I come.
Now it's different. So explain to me in Furry, because I don't get this. When I use Aghanim's, it looks like the nerf to the second target no longer takes effect. It overwrites it. That's what it looks like to me.
A twisted
Because it definitely did less damage when I used ult right there, right? It obviously did less to the second target, clearly. But when I have the Aghanim's, it looks like it does. Yeah, it looks like when you have the Ags, it overwrites the negative, and everybody takes the damage. You think the second hit is hitting... You know what? I can test this better. I'm stupid. Okay, we can easily check this. Let's... I don't like how I set this up. I'm walking away from these dummies because I don't want that many. Let's walk over...
By my bones.
Here.
Forward.
We could have easily tested this, and I don't know why I didn't. Look at the total damage.
Forward.
3,267. Now we'll change this away from Cleft Dead.
My powers grow. Well, well.
What did I say it was? 2,067 or 3,267?
What, yeah?
Okay. Alright. You're right, in Furry. It bounces both. Because that damage without Cleft Death is nothing the same. It's not even close. It's 2,160. We gained 1,000 damage to each unit by having Cleft Death instead.
Waxing powers. Well, well.
Yup. It works.
On my round.
I mean, 2 Witch Doctor coming in,
Very fine.
right?
All's well.
And that's level 6. Let's just be clear about that. Like, one of these is a weak gyrocopter, but these are all gyrocopters with hearts. Level 30. I wasn't even remotely done. I'm not even remotely done. They gotta fix that. And obviously there's a Death Ward damage buff after that. And that's without using Maledict either. So like...
Expect some
Let me
turbulence.
get out of here. I just want my... Alright. 5k
What's that?
health.
Yes.
Three innocent lives taken.
What the fuck is that? Why? And like the worst part too is it goes far. And this is with the talent that increases
Five innocents
attack
driven
rate, but
mercilessly into the ground.
okay. So that's the thing. Witch Doctor has got to be no. They also, by the way, increase the talent that has Maledict's AOE increase, increased by another 25. Okay. This is the only talent, by the way. Cleft Death is it. Wraith King, Spectral Blade. Base damage was decreased by 5 at all levels. That's probably needed, I guess. Zeus. The talent for Heavenly Jump was just gotten rid of. He has mana regen instead, which is probably actually really good. Movement speed after Heavenly Jump was replaced with Thunder God's Wrath damage. That's ult. And Thunder God's Wrath damage, which used to be at 25, which got kicked down to 15 and nerfed, changed to extra static field damage. It looks like a nerf overall, technically speaking, because obviously, technically speaking, the Heavenly Jump probably made him too escapable, and now he doesn't have that. But mana regen is just nice. The movement speed is also a nerf for the same reason as Heavenly Jump cooldown. So they're making him a less escapable hero, but in exchange, they're giving him more mana, earlier big ult, and in exchange at 25, static field would be more. Because remember, static field is a percentage every single time you cast to their current health. So getting an extra 1% to their current health is going to end up doing more damage than it ever could have by having a bigger ult. So I would say, it's a buff if you're not going to be escaping, but obviously a nerf overall because of the escapability. I mean, this took me an hour. I don't want to go over it too much more. I think the biggest changes are obviously, Gleipnir nerf, Axe nerfs. I don't know what to feel about Batrider, actually. True answer, right? Clockwork is playable again. Dark Willow coming to a game near you to right-click you to death. Death Prophet, Spirit Collector coming to a game near you. Ember is playable but bad. Huskar might be playable but probably not. Juggernaut is going to take a nice spot as one of my most played heroes. Magnus is disgusting. Mirana is disgusting. Stop playing Core Omni. Nice little Primal buff. Puck buff. Quap buff. Early Ricky buff. Love all of those. Snap buff. I hate it. Tinker support nerf. Stop playing Tinker support. Tusk buff as like a 4. Venomancer's fair. Viper early buff, late early nerf, late buff needed. Warlock looks disgusting in lane. That's all it affects. And Witch Doctor is broken. All right, well that's it. Well, I appreciate you guys for watching. I will see you all next time.